Recently, Kevin over at Learnende Old English gave us the Old English Word Challenge, wherein he read a list of words in Old English and challenged us to try pronouncing them ourselves. Well, Kevin, not only do I accept your challenge, I'll do you one better. I'm actually going to give the definitions of the words as well, and some linguistic trivia when I know it. So, let's get started. First word, Baudrier. This means maternal aunt or mother's sister, and it derives from an adjective that literally meant maternal with a feminine suffix put on the end, making the female maternal one, or maternal aunt. Next we have roof, which means roof, straat, which means street, wash, which means washing, ere, which means oil, Waverhoes, this means theater or amphitheater and literally meant like a spectacle house. Iron, which means iron. Lax, which means salmon, and actually if you know the word lox, which is a type of smoked salmon, both words come from the same source, although we get lox from, I think, Yiddish. So yeah. Next we have vuur, fire, water, water, rune, and this can mean several things. It can mean whisper or secret or magical writing, aka a rune. Although interestingly enough, our word rune and the Old English rune, they are not directly related. Rune died out in English and then was reborrowed centuries later from Old Norse. Had it actually survived into modern English, it probably would have been pronounced something like round. Although a verbal form of it, which meant to whisper, did survive in some dialects, it developed a D on the end of it as round. So you would round someone in the ear if you were whispering to them. Next. Billith, this can mean an effigy or an image or a likeness of something. Gedehwamlichan. This actually means daily, and the form that Kevin read, Gedehwamlichan, is actually an inflected form. The base would have been Gedehwamlich, and it's probably from the Lord's Prayer because it has the line Urne Gedehwamlichan Hlaf, which means our daily bread. Next we have Yolo, which means yellow, Silk, which means silk, Salt, which means salt, Boga, which means bow, as in like a bow and arrow, Wastling, which means a blanket, Milk, which means milk, Ald, which means old, Engleland, which means England, and then we have Ilfrowitshire, and that means Yorkshire, and the name for York actually has a bit of a history, so forgive my digression. Okay, first of all, Ilfrowitshire is the sort of the southern West Saxon pronunciation. If you were actually up around York, it probably would have been Ilfrowik. There was a sound difference in the north and the south, where a lot of case had a ch sound in the south. York itself is a corruption of the Viking name for the city, which was either Jorvik or Jorvik. The V might have still been pronounced as a W at that point in the history of Old Norse. Not really sure, but that was a corruption of probably the local Ilfrwik, and that actually meant Boerville, basically. Elver or Elver, which excuse me, Elver meant boar, although the name Elverwick itself was a corruption of the old Latin name for the city, which was Eboracum, which in turn came from a Brythonic word, which was Eboracon, which meant a yew tree. So, yeah, it's been through a lot of forms over its 2 millennia of existence. Next word, bolster. This means pillow, although the word bolster still exists in English, pretty much unchanged with the same meaning. Next word is tea, and this one gave me a little bit of trouble. It could be a variant of Tiu, which was the god who gave us Tuesday. That's the only thing that my dictionary listed. It also may have meant to have been the T suffix and the end of, 20, 30, 40, sort of like in, 20, 30, 40, and so forth. Not real sure on that one. Next is Shawara. This means observer, and the verb shawian, which meant observe in Old English, sort of flipped its meaning over the centuries, and by the time it got to us now, it meant show, which is what it is. So it went from observe to show over about 1,000 years. Kind of interesting, I thought. Next we have shadu, which means shade and shadow. And actually, both words derive from shadu. Some forms developed into shadow, some developed into shade. So it's sort of split into two different words over the course of English evolution. Next, we have quain, which means queen, but it could also mean wife or woman. Next, we have kynning, which is king. Swerd, which means sword. Ladder, which is ladder. And finally, Sylvan, which means seven. Thanks, Kevin. This was fun.